So I'm Paul.
I'm Michelle, and we have a YouTube channel called Fab Rats.
We do a little bit of everything here. We build old junk and make it run again. That's why we called it Fab Rats, because it's a lot of just random stuff. We build off-road rigs like this. We build hot rods. Sometimes we build boats. Whatever that catches our interest, that's what we work on. I started working on cars basically as far as I can remember back. This is what we've done my whole life.
Like probably kid.
Oh yeah, way.
Like going back to this childhood.
Yeah. Like started out with mini bikes and go-karts and then kind of morphed into cars and hot rods and that kind of stuff. So my whole life.
When we very first started, I videoed everything. I edited everything.
Told me I was doing everything wrong.
Someone has to.
Yeah.
It's worked out so
Yep.
far, but I don't have to do it all now, and it's really nice. And it's awesome that like our channel's growing enough that we need to have help.
Yep.
So
One of my favorite builds probably that we've ever tackled was the tow truck. So the tow truck started out as my dad's, and he used it. He beat the heck out of it. And then when he passed away, I inherited his tow truck, and I didn't really know what I was gonna do with it. Every time we take the truck out and try to use it, it would break down, it would fall apart. I went on a recovery with it, and the driveline fell out of the front of it, and that was like the last straw. So I decided that day that I was gonna bring it in the shop and we were gonna completely rebuild it. And it took us a year, but we turned it into pretty much the truck that my dad had always talked about having and wanted, so it works pretty good.
we named it Grandpa Sherm. That's the name of the tow truck. And in honor of him, Paul has these lights on the top, and we put G-Paw Sherm just to honor him.
Yep, it was good. I like the truck. It turned out just how we wanted it. So, the Yellow Submarine. I was sitting in the shop one day, thumbing through Facebook because I didn't have anything to do at that time. Seen a picture of this boat at Lake Powell, and instantly screenshot it and sent a picture to my cousin Merlin. He's like, "It's doable. I think we could go get this. You need to go find it." You could zoom in on the picture and see the sticker on the side of it, and knew that it said 93.
Yeah, it said 1993, and I said, a boat that's been under the water for 30 years is never, this is never gonna work. But if it does, it's gonna be amazing.
Yep.
So I'm like, let's do it.
There wasn't a lot of planning.
They did a little recon mission.
We drove out there to see if the boat was even worth it. We took just a big screwdriver with us, and we decided we would poke the bottom of the boat, because if it was rotten, there was no point in even going for it. But it was actually really good and solid, felt good, and all the pieces were still pretty much at the boat. So we got in contact with our sheriff's office, and we gave them all the information we had off the boat. They helped us track down the owners of the boat so that we could actually get permission to even go out there, because they still owned it. It was their boat still just because it was underwater didn't mean it wasn't their boat.
One of the officers that was helping us called and said, we found them and they're alive. They live across the country, but they're alive. And we thought that was amazing, because then we're like, okay, well, this story is getting even better, because now we can find out what happened with this boat. We didn't know how it sank. We didn't know anything about it. We didn't know if they even cared about it anymore.
When we got in contact with him, he gave me permission to go get it. And at that point, we didn't really think the boat was going to run and float and do all of those things. We thought that we could show him the boat one last time and then it'd go to the scrap yard, because we still hadn't been out to get it. We didn't want to tell him what we were going to do with the boat, because we wanted to surprise him with it.
Yeah, that was the whole point. We really, really wanted to get the boat all ready. We had talked to his son. We found out he was a police officer as well, and we talked to him, and we tried to get him to pretend like they won a trip to Lake Havasu or something.
Because we didn't really want to tell the dad what was going on. We convinced the son that, look, we don't want your boat. We're not in it for the boat. We're in it for the story of the boat. and if you'll give us permission to go get it. And he's like, I don't know if I can get my dad to do that.
We had to tell him the reason why he was coming out to Lake Havasu. He's kind of like a little detective, old Brian.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to come anywhere unless he knew what he was doing and what was going on. We ended up telling him.
We never told him that we got the boat running,
Nope.
that it floated,
We
any
told
of
him
that
the
stuff.
bare minimum.
We told him that we recovered his boat and that he'd have a chance to come and look at it again.
So Paul's cousin, Merlin, he also has a YouTube channel called Merlin's Old School Garage, and he's the one that knows about boats. We don't really know that much about boats.
He lives in Lake Havasu. It's boat capital of the world.
Right,
So
and he's really
we
smart.
knew if anyone could get it fixed, he would have the resources and all the people around him to make that happen. So we involved him in it.
Yep.
During the recovery, the biggest challenges were trying not to ruin the boat getting it out of there. So we had to come up with a way to pick the boat up and set it on a trailer, because floating it wasn't an option because we didn't even know if the boat would float. It was 100 yards from the water, so dragging it to the water and then trying to float it across the lake didn't seem very feasible to us. So we came through a dirt road on the backside of the lake to get into it.
And
And
if anybody knows anything about dry lake beds,
yeah, they're
it says
sketchy.
dry lake beds, but they're not usually dry.
Yep.
They have a crust that's like this thick, and then underneath it is just mud. We've had to do multiple recoveries in dry lake beds. So that's why we did the recon. You guys went and did the recon to make sure it was even feasible to get to the boat. And then once they figured it out, the ground was super dry. Lake
Yep.
Powell has been receding for how many years?
Yeah. So the boat had been out of water for about 2 years, so we were pretty good with that. And where it was rocky, so we were kind of okay. And then we just put the logistics together, get Merlin's tow truck there to pick it up, meet it back under it, and then just all the washes on the way out, dragging it out.
But your biggest thing was your truck
Was
broke.
breaking the truck.
He broke
yeah.
his Toyota.
Yeah,
on
we
the
broke
way.
the Toyota, and then it overheated on us, and
The boat was fine,
yeah, the boat was good. The
Yeah.
equipment was faulty.
but we got it home. When we went to go pick the boat up, and we started like kind of sifting through with like the shovel, and we started finding stuff. And just that boggled my mind that there was still stuff in there from 30 years under the water. We found a baby bottle with milk in it still. We found baby Tylenol that was a glass bottle. We found a teething ring with Mickey Mouse, and we found like little McDonald's toys.
And their insurance cards.
And we found their medical cards.
Yeah.
And so we were just piecing things together. The plug was still in it, so we knew that it had to be some type of natural disaster.
We had some ideas. We thought that, Lake Powell, the storms come up pretty quick. We thought they had it tied off somewhere or something and the wind blew it away. But once we got there and started seeing all those things in it, we could see that people were in the boat when it sank. So then it piqued our interest, like, man, I wonder what the real story to this thing
What happened
is.
with this boat, you know? And like, I was hoping as a mother, because obviously there was kids in the boat, that something non-traumatic happened to them, but that wasn't the case. Paul and Ben and Hunter went to Lake Havasu, what do you think, like a month before
Yep.
they flew out, to help Merlin with the boat and do all the things. And they decided they wanted to try to get the motor running.
When we were pulling the motor out, I had a breaker bar on it trying to get it turned so we could get the bolts out, and it turned a little bit. And we're like, this motor might run. We had to completely gut it. The pump on the back, it had been underwater for 30 years. We did manage to make the motor run again, but we took that motor out and put another one in it because we needed it to be reliable. We didn't want it to break down on them.
When we talked to the owner of the boat and we got the full story, it was, like I said before, it was even more dramatic than we ever imagined. And so he said that they were at a family reunion at Lake Powell, and they were just out boating. And if anybody has ever been to Lake Powell, if a storm comes up and you're in the middle of the lake, it's really scary because they just come in an instant, and the winds pick up, swells come up. He said that's what happened to him that day. He said there was 4-foot swells, and he's in this little speedboat. He has his wife with him. He has a niece with him, and he has his 2 toddlers. One was a baby, one was a toddler, and they were getting as fast as they could to shore back to where they were camping, and the motor died. And nobody would stop and help them. And when he was telling the story, like, we were all getting emotional because I cannot imagine, like, that's making me start to cry a little bit. I can't imagine, like, having my family and being helpless, like, in the middle of a lake, and no one would stop and help them. A lot of people passed them by, but I mean, if you think about it, they were also in a panic too, probably, because they were also in the middle of this storm. And the last thing they would want to do is to sink too. But he was dead in the water. The motor wasn't working. He had his whole family on the board. No one would stop. A tour boat went by them, and they wouldn't even stop. The tour boat came back. They did a little spin, and they were right in the line, their path to get through. So they basically, the tour boat had to stop for them. Otherwise he wouldn't have stopped. And he ended up basically throwing his baby on that boat.
He threw it to one of the deck cans.
Yeah.
Threw his baby up, and the deck can had to catch him.
Yeah.
And then they just started loading on.
And
he said when he stepped off the boat back onto his boat to get something else, it sank.
So we got everything that we could find, cleaned it up for him, and like presented it to him that day. And that was pretty emotional too, because, you know, their kids are grown. So the Yellow Submarine was, like, so far one of my favorite series that we've ever done on our YouTube channel. It's nothing like we usually do, but it was, the story was amazing. And
I liked it just because it was like full circle. It was
right.
Like, you got to see the whole story of how it all happened, where it came from, and then you're going to get to see us take it back and give it to them in the end.
They're our friends now. So we met friends along the way. He's going to get his boat back after 30 years.
Yep.